Do you know those games that are neither good nor bad? They're just okay? Hi, I'm Fly and today I'm going to list 10 popular games that are just fine. And just because I think the game is just fine, it doesn't mean I hate the game. In fact, I own most games on this list, so now of course this is going to be my opinion, and if you don't agree with me, you're wrong. Just kidding. Because thankfully we're all different and everybody has their own tastes, so you gotta live with that. And without further ado, let's go. Alright, so let's start off with Villainous. And this is Disney Villainous, I haven't played enough of the others. So in this game you're a villain from the Disney universe who's trying to accomplish their personal plots. And I really like the theme, and I think the game has a really good dynamic where you just move your pawn piece and do all the actions that are uncovered. So this game is basically a race, each character has their own victory condition and the player who achieves it first wins the game. But the thing is, the game feels unbalanced. I've played this several times and several characters feel they get ahead of the others really fast very often. There's a ton of luck, I mean for some characters there's death card you need that never comes up. And then of course the player who's about to win gets targeted with fates every other turn. Number 9 is Splendor. This game has been around for a while and it's still pretty popular. So the theme of this game is that there is no theme here, you're just picking up chips, trading them for cards, some of the cards have points on them, the first player to 15 points ends and probably wins the game. So you just have to be the player who does it the most efficient. I get it, when I first played this I found it to be really interesting. It has that engine building feel where you're trading a few resources for one permanent resource, and that feels good. And after a while you'll have a ton of cards making for permanent resources. It's a really great game for newer players coming into the hobby. But for someone who's played this a few dozen times, not so much. And there's actually a winning strategy that only works at 4 players. But you can't pull it off unless you're playing with new people. If you're playing with someone who knows what you're doing, or with even someone who's doing the same as you, it won't work. I'd rather play something like Sentry. It gives me much of the feel of Splendor, but it's a better game. Now we have Tapestry. Okay, so this is the first huge game on this list. I appreciate a lot of what Stonemaier does, and this is no different. This is a beautiful game with an amazing production, but the game itself is just boring. You're just moving up tracks. You're trying to figure out a way to maximize your actions each round and squeeze every resource just so you can play for as long as possible. And depending on the player count, the game can have a lot of downtime. And thematically the game's very loose on that end. I mean, it's sold as a Civ game in which you're going through several eras, but you're not exactly progressing as a civilization, because you can't really choose how to evolve as an identity. Sometimes you only have one tapestry card at the end of an era and you have to go with that one. Other times you have a couple of them and you just need to choose the one with an ability you might get to use the next era. And the technologies are very incoherent. I mean, in one round you can come up with electronics, and 2 rounds later you invent the paper. Just like in real life. I'm sorry Jamie, I like a lot of what you do, but the game's not that amazing. If you like moving up tracks though, the game's perfect for you. And at number 7 we have Fury of Dracula. I had a lot of fun with this when I got it, but now... So this is a 1 versus many game where one player takes the role of Dracula, trying to do all sorts of nasty things, and everyone else takes the role of hunters, trying to defeat Dracula. I really like 1 versus many games, but this one just drags on and on for so long. And if you're playing with the Dracula's special ability cards, it makes the game super hard for the hunters. But if you're not, it makes the game slightly harder for Dracula. And if one of the hunters meets up with Dracula alone, he will probably take a beating. And the combat in this game is pretty much just rock, paper, scissors. Ah man, I don't know, there are so many better options like mind management and sniper elites. And if I'm feeling for something lighter, maybe Whitehall Mystery. At number 6 we have Race for the Galaxy. Okay, so the things I like about this game. Playing an action card, everybody gets to do the action, but you get to do the bonus. And that's it. There's nothing else I like about this. What I really dislike about this game is the iconography. It's so bad! It's so not intuitive. So to play one card, you need to pay by discarding other cards. When can I play it? What sort of card is this? There are so many different icons. So you have this diamond-shaped icon, this hexagon icon, these are fine. But then you have the circles, and there's a lot of different colored circles. So you have the gray circles, then you have the gray circles with a red outline. Then you have circles with a red outline, but with a colored shade. Then you have all sorts of colored circles. What does any of those mean? I'd rather play something like Puerto Rico or Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition, which uses pretty much the same mechanic. Number 5 is Dominant Species. And by this I mean both the old one and Dominant Species Marine. They work slightly different, but are pretty much the same. So this is a GMT game, which means it's ugly as all get out. The new version looks a lot better graphically, but component-wise it's still cubes, which is pretty boring. Alright, so this is an interesting concept. You are some kind of species, and certain species can only thrive in certain environments. The worker placement aspect of this game is really cool. There are so many options, and you can only place your cylinders to the right or below your other cylinders. But what bugs me the most is how lengthy the game is. The game goes on for so long, it just drags on and on and on and on and on. The game's also very tight and it can be very mean, there's so much take that. And some of the cards you get as a bonus for the area majority are just broken. This almost has a war game feel to it. Yeah, no, you better just leave it on the shelf, okay? At number 4 we have Dune. And just to be clear, I'm talking about this Dune, not that one. I actually love Imperium. Okay, I get it, this game is very thematic. In this game you're some kind of faction vying for control of certain key spots on the planet. Spice shows up every round and you're rolling the hunt for that. And there's also a storm going around and around the board that kills everyone that's not hidden in the proper spots when it comes through. And I really like all of that. But this is one of those games that you need a cheat sheet with every other ability everyone else has, every card in the game, because otherwise you'll have a bad time. Some faction abilities are just broken and overpowered under certain circumstances, and again you need to know what cards there are and what they do beforehand. Otherwise, when going into combat, you might get surprised. This game is also very mean. The combat, you can all just wipe each other if you want. I don't know, there's just too much nonsense happening for this to be a good game. This is just a mess. Number 3 is Trajan. So the thing about Stefan Feld games is that they're so dry and abstract. Just happened to pick this one because it's one of his most popular ones. This is a point salad game where you have a bunch of minigames and each of them awards you points in some way. And on your turn you're just picking which one of these minigames you want to play. And the way you do that is through this Rondel Mancala system on your player board. You know, where you're picking up this group of colored tokens and you distribute them as you move along, and where you end up, it's the action you get to do. But it's so thinky, you need to plan well ahead. So if I do this action this turn, can I do that one on my next turn? But I needed a yellow and a white piece there. It's just a lot of work on your own player board for very little reward on the main board. So your piece ended up in this space, you can do this minigame. You ended up in that space, you can do that minigame. That's all there is to it. Number 2 is Lost Ruins of Arnak. Okay, so the thing about this one, it was sold to me as a worker placement / deck building game. And there's plenty of worker placement, but not so much deck building. I really like both mechanics, but the deck building aspect in this game is very superficial. I like my deck builders to cycle the cards over and over, and in this game that just doesn't happen. Because when I buy a new card, I get to see it once, maybe twice during the game. And that's not what I'm looking for in a deck builder. Lost Ruins of Arnak and Dune Imperium often get compared due to having these very similar mechanics, but Dune Imperium does both of them better. So unfortunately this is one of those games where I really like the theme, but the game is just okay. And finally, number 1 is Wingspan. That's right, and I'm probably gonna get trash for this. Okay, so this is probably the most popular game to have come out in the last 4 years. Stonemaier Games has a lot of influence in the industry, and for a good reason. Although this was not designed by Jamie, but still. And this is actually a very important game in the hobby. It's a simple, beautiful game with a great production, a lovely theme, and it's available everywhere. This might have been a gateway game for a lot of people. A lot of non-gamers who happen to pick this up just because it had a pretty cover. And that's great! But at the end of the day, the game is, guess what? Just fine. I get it, this is interesting for someone new getting into the hobby, but after a few plays, honestly, it all boils down to getting a good card combo going on. And if you manage to get that within your starting hand, it means you don't need to waste actions to get your engine running, and that's huge in this game. So I'm sorry, I understand how big and important this game is, but it's just okay. And we're done. What popular games do you think that are just fine? Let me know in the comments, thank you so much for watching, and until next time.